Coming up, it's a discussion on the most influential show from 1999. Nope, it's not The Sopranos. It's Spongebob Squarepants Season 1, and this is Most Extreme Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Most Extreme Podcast, the show where we discuss and analyze the enigma that is 2000s pop culture. I am Jarrett Whitworth.
I'm Jonathan Snowdy.
And I'm Brett Ellison.
And we are here to talk with you all today about one of our favorite topics. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. SpongeBob Season 1.
Yes. I guess a quick disclaimer. Should we explain technically what we're doing with SpongeBob, I guess?
That's fair. For sure. So we are going to do different pods for the different seasons. Really only the first three. I think we recognize those as the official SpongeBob canon. But yeah, they will be divided up. So this week we're just doing season 1. And we will tackle seasons 2 and 3 at a later time.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, one idea I was thinking of, because I was just researching more about this topic and just sort of SpongeBob as a whole. Would you guys want to do 1, 2, 3, and then the movie to kind of finalize everything that we talk about SpongeBob wise?
Ooh, great idea.
Since I mean, we can get into it later. But Steven Hillenburg, the creator, kind of considers the movie to be really the final piece of SpongeBob. The first movie.
Not the. I saw a still frame or a small preview of the one that's coming out next year. It's just in total 3D, not 3D, but just very.
Is that the one with? Is that the one with Keanu Reeves?
Oh, what?
Yeah. He's in it.
I'm sage, and I'm made of sage.
He plays a sage made of sage, and it's basically just like a tumbleweed made of sage, and it's Keanu Reeves' a live action head inside of it,
like the Metro Goldwyn Mayer lion.
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
It's
Snoop
very
Dogg as
strange.
himself.
Oh, Snoop Dogg's in it. Oh,
yeah.
What?
Why is he not the sage? Oh,
that's news to me.
But not a surprise. I don't know.
Keanu Reeves, Aquafina, and Reggie Watts.
Aquafina's in it. What?
Whoa!
Dude, this thing is stacked.
I gotta see this movie. When is it coming out?
2021 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it got delayed.
Yeah. We'll try again next year.
Sponge on the Run.
Sponge on the Run. Yeah, there's 3 movies from what I know, because there was one called Sponge Out of Water, which is sort of a hybrid between cartoon and live action, if I remember.
Okay.
I mean, the first movie does that, but this one's it goes straight into 3D for a little bit. And I remember it being good because they brought Steven Hillenburg back, but it was very much it's just not the same. And I think, which we'll get into with our discussion, is that the early bits of SpongeBob are sort of the most impactful part of SpongeBob, where all the memes and all the popular culture that everyone references and knows all come from the first 3 seasons in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of them even from the first 5 episodes of the movie. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I've been amazed at how much I've been watching it, full confession, for the first time.
Blows my mind.
And I have been blown away by how many of the memes that I'm familiar with and the clips and everything are from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right. That was the one thing I was going to I guess we can transition to that now, was what is y'all's background with SpongeBob? Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I have seen maybe 2 full episodes in my life before researching for this episode of the podcast. I think I had seen Doodle Bob, where he gets the pencil and he creates the drawing of himself that comes alive. And I don't know what season that's in. And the other one I think I've seen is when SpongeBob and Patrick get the like cardboard box and they're just playing in the cardboard box. Yeah. And then I've seen, I've seen all the memes and I've seen, a bunch of clips and everything. And I'm familiar with the world and the characters and everything with that. I think the main reason, there are two main reasons why I never like watched it growing up. Number one is my parents really found it annoying. And number two, we didn't have access to Nickelodeon or cable at all. So we were stuck with PBS for any entertainment.
I think it's funny that not having access to Nickelodeon wasn't the first reason that you didn't see it a whole lot.
I think what I'm trying to imply is that the reason we didn't have access to Nickelodeon is just because my parents found SpongeBob annoying.
You had it for one day, and then they watched SpongeBob, and all of a sudden they
canceled
it. They sneak cut the wire for the cable. Whoops! It's static. What happened?
Not even like canceled it, just like a pair of shears like snipped the cable.
Where did those come from?
Or just you call the company, you're like, listen, we just not that channel. Every channel but that channel. I don't black it out. We don't want it.
Side note, Jonathan and I, when we went to school together growing up, there was a classmate of ours who didn't own a TV, and everyone thought that was the most crazy idea ever.
His family didn't own a TV.
Yeah.
Like at all. No
TVs in the house.
He was also allergic to chocolate.
Yeah, everyone was like, "What's wrong with you?" about everything.
I don't know. He couldn't help like being allergic to chocolate.
Yeah, that's something that you know. What's wrong with your allergies, man?
But not having a TV, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, I think that was so strange. I remember everyone being like, "Did you know that he doesn't have a TV?" I'm not going to name drop, but it was Jonathan. No, I'm kidding.
My parents turned on the TV. SpongeBob was on. Then they smashed it with a hammer. They were like, "No!"
Oh my gosh!
What's the Ron Swanson where he throws the computer in the garbage? That's Jonathan's dad.
It like tracks his cookies or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, that's Jonathan's dad when he watched SpongeBob for the first time.
Oh my gosh!
I don't like Krabby Patties.
Which we'll definitely get into. I have a lot of notes about SpongeBob and the relationship with educational television and parents. But Jared, do you have a background with SpongeBob?
Yeah. So Steven, sorry, hold on.
I guess your personal. Hillenburg. I meant more your personal background with SpongeBob.
Oh, my whoa.
But then we'll get into that. Yes.
I'm ready. No, I don't remember if there was a time where I was like expressly forbidden from watching it, or if it wasn't, if it like wasn't something we were allowed to watch. There weren't many things like that, at least in terms of like, cartoons. Obviously there was like inappropriate things we weren't allowed to watch, but I don't think SpongeBob was ever like on the naughty list or anything. So I remember it's just, it'd be SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents. Those were the two like upper echelon Nickelodeon. Like if it's on, we're watching it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't remember the first episode I saw, and I probably haven't seen it in years, but it's one of those, I went through and read, a lot of the summaries and whatnot. And I just remembered like specific lines from each one. I just went, oh man, I remember this. It's just one of those things that you can always go back to, even no matter how long it has been since you watched it. You can go back and just immediately be right back there, remembering it. Maybe that just means I watched it too much, but
for sure. Wait, side note, because you were talking about that. Do you guys have shows that your parents were like very much against you watching as a kid?
Yes, there was a lot of shows and movies that made that list in our household. In case you couldn't tell,
Was one of them SpongeBob?
The one of them was SpongeBob. I don't think there was an explicit ban because they thought it was annoying. They did, but we also never had cable because my parents were like, "We're not paying for that."
Oh, poor old Jonathan with the no cable.
I do remember there was a time when Dragon Tales was not allowed because it had magic, and that was a major strike on the checklist of things that are not allowed.
Wow, I love Dragon Tales.
Yeah, I remember we weren't supposed to watch it, and yet I very distinctly remember waking up early in the morning with my brothers and watching it. So I don't know what happened with that. I was probably between the ages of 5 and 7, and I was really just an accessory to the crime at that point. My brothers were the ones calling the shots.
Hey, Jonathan, wake up! It's time for Dragon Tales. What about you, Jarrett?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't remember. I know that my parents didn't like Hey Arnold for a little bit, but then we were watching it one day and they watched a little bit and we're like, oh, this is fine. So I don't know why the reason behind that would be. I think we were mostly, it was just don't watch too much TV. It was like, hey, also get outside or also read. Yeah, I can't remember anything like that off the top of my head anyway. Yeah.
The only two that I can think of explicitly that my parents you cannot watch this is Rugrats, because the parents were really dumb and the kids were just mean to their parents. And I remember, so I've never watched a full episode of Rugrats to this day. I have watched a lot of the Wild Thornberries, which at some point we should definitely talk about. Which my mom loved. And, I saw the movie in theaters. I was huge on that. But for some reason, nothing with the Rugrats. And then the other one was Teletubbies. And mainly just because that show is so creepy.
I self-selected not watching Teletubbies.
Even as a kid, you had the discernment to be like, yeah, no.
It's I don't like this at all.
If someone could explain to me what Teletubbies teaches children,
man,
you need to write a PhD dissertation on it.
If you swallow a television, people will be able to watch your belly.
I feel like it makes as much sense as, that there's that video on YouTube, the Johnny eating sugar, that horrifying animated video that's aimed at kids.
Oh yes, Papa. Yeah.
Yes, that one. I feel like Teletubbies is in that realm of it's so targeted at kids, anyone else is incapable of comprehending it. I remember with Teletubbies, I watched it a little bit as a toddler, and I remember I got to the point where I could stand on my own, and I was like, I'm old now and I'm too cool for this. I was 5. I was already this is for babies.
You didn't stand up until you were 5? Is that what you're getting from this story?
It's from
possibly. I don't know.
It's from not having cable.
A baby giraffe is born standing up. Come on.
Am I a giraffe?
No, I'm just saying they're doing way better than you.
In a lot of ways, Jarrett. In a lot of ways.
I don't understand. Well, okay. Well, going back to SpongeBob.
Anyway.
I remember at some point I had a babysitter who had VHS tapes of SpongeBob, and we would watch them all the time, and I thought it was hilarious. And then I think for some reason, my dad got a hold of either a VHS tape or a DVD of SpongeBob, and my dad is the biggest fan of SpongeBob in my whole family. He loves SpongeBob. He watches it all the time. We have DVDs of seasons of SpongeBob at my house because we watched it all the time. It's my dad's one of his favorite shows.
I find that so funny.
We can go into it a little bit as we talk about sort of the creation and what makes SpongeBob unique type thing, but I think it's just I don't know. We've always said you can always know if my dad ever had a terrible day at work, he would be in the living room alone watching SpongeBob because it just made him like relax and like have a good day. So that's I don't know why. I mean, I love the show.
Well, it is a very like it's like carefree. There's no serious drama or anything. You know, you just get to kick back.
Yeah, for sure.
It is very true. It's just earnest. It's just earnest fun.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Earnest fun, for sure.
Yeah, there are a few people that I've seen laugh harder at SpongeBob than your dad.
That's true. Yeah, Jarrett will know for sure that we've had like nights at my house where we'll all just go around the television and watch SpongeBob. It's
groups of college kids and your dad just cackling at SpongeBob.
Yeah. That's a good discernment right there, is if you can get a room full of people watching SpongeBob, and there can be like, I'd say, I don't know, maybe like 60% or more who love it, and then there's just people just sitting there in the corner with their fist over their mouth, just like, I don't get this. Which we can get to in a bit, because I do have some notes about that. But Jared, did you want to get into sort of the background of SpongeBob?
Yeah, well, I think just the coolest part of it is the fact that this guy, Steven Hillenburg, the creator of it, the brain behind SpongeBob, was a marine biologist. Like, that was his first career path. And so you have as a guy who's artistic and likes the art of it, but then knows the material so well. And that was kind of his whole motivation for it. But yeah, he taught marine biology out in California for a few years, and then just realized he wanted to get into art and found his way, did some short films, like some short animations. I think the famous one is, what's it called? The Intertidal Zone. That's the one that directly kind of correlates to SpongeBob, or is kind of that first precursor to it, which is just a short little cartoon about an intertidal, and like some basic marine life.
Have y'all looked at the Intertidal Zone? I believe it was a comic, not a cartoon, by the way. It's not to.
Yeah, I think there was another. There's another. He did a short film after Intertidal Zone. And I am blanking on the name of it.
Wormholes.
Wormholes.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
But I don't know if y'all have seen or looked at some of what the Intertidal Zone looked like, but it's very reminiscent of early SpongeBob, and you can totally tell that's the inspiration for it.
Yeah, you can see the influence for sure.
There's like a Gary snail.
But then you mentioned, the wormholes. That's what got him. There were other animators and stuff that saw that, and he got involved. That's how he got connected to people that were working on Rocko's Modern Life, which is another weird show.
I love it. I think it's great.
Oh, it's good. It's just weird. And you think of like kind of the surreal sort of animation and drawing that some of these shows had. Like Rocko's Modern Life definitely appealed to his style. He had this, Brett, you sent me the video that was kind of like the origin of SpongeBob, and it went into he and this other artist that got connected. It was Steven's art was kind of like sort of surreal and what's the word to use? It's sort of like unbound, or there weren't very many hard lines. It was just kind of like spacey a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of looked like
like the background of SpongeBob. Like that's kind of his thing, sort of like the soft, just kind of washed out kind of thing. And yeah, that's what so that's what some of the stuff he did. And then this other artist was more like in the lines, hard lines. So they just kind of put those styles together. It looks pretty unique.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, it went from Rocko's Modern Life, and then had this idea. It says, okay, hey, my passion, the stuff I know about is this marine science, marine biology. Let's see about making a show about this. So he put together this pitch for Nickelodeon that involved him like voicing out the characters. He showed up in a Hawaiian shirt, had a conch shell that played the theme song. The accounts of it is just like, it was wild. Like, it was him just kind of going all in on it, making all the producers, all the people that were watching the pitch just die laughing. They had to step out of the room only to catch their breath, and then came back in and said, yes, we're doing this show. let's get it started. So I think even from the beginning, like, the idea of it is just almost a home run.
Yeah, no, it's so strange that it was one of those shows that hit the ground running from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to go from his sort of sense of humor and like how he wanted to do it. Because he had mentioned, and so the video that we're talking about is called The Origins of SpongeBob, and it's on YouTube, but essentially it's a video that was on like the third disc of season 1. And sort of the concept of it was that it was it is just like a documentary of how SpongeBob was made. And I think a lot of people, I find that type of stuff really interesting, but it's cool to see interviews with people, making that type of stuff. I love watching behind the scenes type things. So to me, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And it's, SpongeBob, you just think it's still so relevant. I mean, that's what we're talking about with memes and everything. It's like Garfield or The Simpsons. It's just kind of one of those things that just like is bigger than itself at this point.
Right. Did you guys see what it was originally going to be called before it was called SpongeBob?
No. What was it?
The name was SpongeBoy Ahoy at one point.
That is worse than SpongeBob.
That is worse. We should mention that in the comic, The Intertile Zone, it was hosted by a sponge just called Bob.
Yeah. He's Bob the Sponge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's a little bit more of a natural sponge. Like, he's got sunglasses, like your childhood drawing of the sun. But other than that, he's pretty much just a normal sea sponge.
Yeah. One thing to also mention is that, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't give enough credit for, is that this show was handled all the animation overseas in South Korea, which happens a lot, especially with American animation. I think just because of how cheap it is to do it over there. There's only like a few companies in America that still do all the animation in-house in America. I mean, Pixar is one of them, but they do computer animation. One of them is a company called Titmouse. They do a ton of stuff. That, like, they did The Legend of Korra, things like that. They're doing that new Critical Role show that like won all the huge, that like had the fastest growing Kickstarter of all time. But that's the only ones I think of. So yeah, SpongeBob is like a lot of those. But yeah, it's an interesting show, and I would love to talk about. I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on sort of the design approach and what makes what, like, I guess so unique in terms of the world of Bikini Bottom. Jonathan, since this is like basically your first time watching the show, what were some of the things that stood out to you?
In particular, in regards to design, I think that like the overall, the Hawaiian theme that's kind of thrown in there, that's sort of like throughout every element, including the background, like no matter where you look, there's always sort of this like Hawaiian print, like flower motif. Mm-hmm. Patrick's pants have that same kind of like flower pattern. Everything sort of has that motif, and I think that's very unique to SpongeBob. I don't think I've seen that in anything else. In addition to, like, the characters are so unique and memorable, and yet they still retain like so much simplicity. Like, Spongebob Squarepants is the most blocky and square character, and yet he's instantly recognizable.
Right. That's sort of a golden rule in terms of all animation. If you look at, I mean, like Mickey Mouse, if you look at even video games like Mario and Sonic, is that all their designs are super simple, that like if a 4-year-old did a very rough drawing, you could still tell who it is.
Yeah.
And SpongeBob is, a good example, and Patrick, and even like Mr. Krabs and Squidward and all that, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Plankton's probably the easiest to draw. I remember like commercials during Nickelodeon or whatever when they'd have like, hey, I'm the artist behind SpongeBob, and I'm going to teach you how to draw Plankton. You guys remember that?
Yeah, I do remember
that. Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
they're still on YouTube, I want to say.
That sounds awesome. Oh, they probably are. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's just
awesome.
An oval and an eye.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. They had something on nick.com, which was back before, back when web, like Flash games were huge. They had so many on there, which I love. And we will have to talk about Flash games at some point, but they had something called like Nick Player or something. It was essentially like YouTube, but it was just for like episodes of Nickelodeon shows and clips. That's like where I would watch a lot of clips from the Kids' Choice Awards. And so they would still have those like, hi, I'm so-and-so. Here's how you draw, Jimmy Neutron. So yeah, they're still on there somewhere. One thing I want to talk about, Jonathan, you mentioned sort of like the flowers and sort of the floral Hawaiian designs this is from the Wikipedia, but they were talking about how the season that we're talking about today, season 1, marked an introduction of what is called the sky flowers in the main background. It appeared in the pilot and has since become a common feature throughout the entire series. When the series background designer was asked, what are those things? He answered, they function as clouds in a way, but since the show takes place underwater, there aren't any clouds. So that is just something that kind of just stuck with it and then just became such a staple of the show in terms of the design.
Yeah. Huh.
Jared, do you have any like visual things that stand out in terms of?
No, I don't remember any show to that point or like around it. Like it was definitely unique to me because it would mix the cartoon and the live action all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
You had the pirate coming in every once in a while, or just the weird scenes. I think Suds is in this season, but it's like, when they're like healing. Yeah, when they're like helping the cure for the Suds is to like use SpongeBob as a sponge, and then it's just a live action like a hand washing dishes and stuff like with the real sponge and just very unique thing to SpongeBob at this point.
Right. I don't really know of any other shows that have done that.
I mean, at this point, we've had stuff like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and things where we've had 2D and 3D live together, or Space Jam.
But that's different.
But just on TV.
Because that's basically a live action movie with animated characters, where this is an animated show that uses live action elements. And the only thing that comes to my mind is, I think, Phineas and Ferb. It was one episode. They had a bit where they basically had the creators like explaining a plot device in stop motion, but it was like photographs of them in front of their drawing board. Like
I remember that.
Right. But it was like one episode. It wasn't like a normal thing.
Yeah. This is like a routine part of SpongeBob.
Yeah. There's one time, like SpongeBob is describing the Krabby Patty, and it's like a live action shot of like a burger being assembled. And
yes.
And when they when SpongeBob and Patrick go to Sandy's house for the first time and they like completely dry out, it's just like a live action shot of like a sponge and a plastic starfish.
Yeah. And SpongeBob freaks out over the butterfly or whatever, and it's just a close up of a real butterfly. He's like,
yeah, that's going to be, I think, coming up, and I think that's in season 2. I think that's the Wormy episode. Or no, is Wormy in this season? Or is
no, Wormy is another one. Tea at the Tree Dome, the one Jonathan was talking about. Yeah, that's the first episode of this, or like the third part of the first episode. It looks like like a first quote unquote episode was like 3. They kind of had like 3 sections to it.
Yeah.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you thought we couldn't waste any more brain space with knowing the precise episodes of SpongeBob, you've been wrong.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia.
Yeah, okay, I have it up too. It's not. Yeah, I mean, from this episode, I mean, even just like very staple things like the island above Bikini Bottom is live action. Just things like that. But I think that also goes into sort of the vibe, which we've been talking about with sort of Hawaiian, but it's super reminiscent of sort of the tiki movement in California and Hawaii of like the 50s and 60s. Which is, Hillenburg's childhood was in that time period. But like the music, when it's not like Hawaiian music, is very much like 50s, 60s, like jazz and like big bang music. Which is really cool. Yeah. And like one of my favorite episodes of season 1 is Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Did you watch that one, Jonathan?
I have not gotten that far.
That's one of my favorite episodes for sure, because it's essentially a spoof on the 60s Batman. And Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are both played by Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway, who are huge comedy stars.
I'm so looking forward to that.
They're hilarious in it. And they have their like version of the Batmobile is called the Invisible Boatmobile. And I think is it in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2 or 1, where they're lost in a parking lot and they just click their keys, and for a split second you see the invisible boatmobile. Yeah, you say boop. No, I think you just see the car, and it's like a 1959 Cadillac. So yeah, like I mean, like that time period is so like built into like what is SpongeBob.
That reminds me. There was an edit of the Aquaman trailer where someone put in Barnacle Boy and Mermaid Man, and nice. Added their voice lines to it. I'll have to send that. It's so good.
I do. If anyone I could ever like cosplay, if I ever did cosplay, I would totally do something from the Mermaid Man episodes. Which in season 2 we'll get to. Maybe one of my favorite episodes of all time is the 3rd Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode, where the villain Man Ray shows up, who's incredible, and is played by John Rhys Davis, the legendary actor who's also known as Gimli in Lord of the Rings.
And he's the one who has the exchange with Patrick about like your ID was in this wallet.
Yes, yeah, classic scene.
Makes sense to me.
Oh my gosh!
So this must be your wallet. This is not my wallet. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, another live action piece is that the announcer on TV is like a live fish with just a talking mouth.
Oh right, it's like
one of the singing bass or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's like that. But like
it comes in from the side.
I forgot what is his name. It's like Billy Big Mouth Bass.
Yeah, I think this in the show is just known as the announcer, but like it's basically one of those fish just like on the side being like, and then all of a sudden, it's voiced by.
Think about how often the like 3 hours later, like how often those come up.
Right.
Yeah, that's very.
Passing.
Which I think. Go ahead.
The French narrator. Is that linked to Hillenburg's like animation school days, or do you guys know the origin of that, or is there any sort of meaning behind that?
Yeah, so that's from he mentions in that same origin of SpongeBob video that we all saw that he was really inspired by the show called The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, which was basically like a nature program showing about the undersea world and just like a Planet Earth type thing, but by a French documentary filmmaker named Jacques Cousteau. And the voice is very similar to that, being like, look at the sea and look at that fish. And instead of having Jacques Cousteau, who's passed on, it's Tom Kenny. So the same voice as SpongeBob doing it. But yeah, you can't help but love that.
Did you all see the? I just texted you this meme. Did y'all see that?
I did see this.
Sundance.
It's
how do we explain
Dwayne
this?
Johnson playing Squidward, and he's green and has the big nose and holding a clarinet.
And it says at the top, "Haters gonna hate."
Who's gonna hate? It's out of control.
That's one interesting thing that we should mention talking about the Squidward, which we'll get into in a second. But the only episode that I can think of off the top of my head where Squidward plays the clarinet well, or plays it and nobody talks about how it sucks, is the first episode.
Well, a lot of these comedies, they take some time to settle into the characters, so.
It's not anything against it, but it is something
that's wild though. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
The only time that he plays it well is in the first episode.
Yeah. He plays it okay later on, but like somebody might like example in season 2, one of, I think what would be statistically known as maybe the most famous episode is Band Geeks, where the episode starts out him playing, and then he gets a doorbell rings, and he goes downstairs, and it's a bunch of people in like medical equipment being like, "Oh yeah, we're from the pet hospital down the street, and we hear you got a dying animal on the loose."
Oh my word.
Jonathan, did you like watching SpongeBob? I mean, since this is technically your first time, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it?
What episodes did you watch?
I am not very far in, I must say. Had a bit of a busy week, but I did get on Amazon Prime and started watching it. So I am
not a sponsor.
Not sponsored at all.
I don't want Jeff Bezos to sponsor us.
I guess. Well, there goes the sponsorship
for all of us.
I am halfway through episode 5, so I just watched Pizza Delivery.
Oh my
Krusty Krab!
Pioneers used to ride these babies for miles.
There are some jokes that do get me. I think my favorite so far is, gosh, I love Plankton, and this is my lab, and this is my laboratory.
Oh,
the first room is just like his dog.
That's another example of just using live action for no reason.
Yeah, it's just like someone's like home video of their golden retriever. There are also other times that in particular, there are times when SpongeBob's voice just annoys me, and I completely empathize with my parents. But there are also some moments where I'm like, that's a really clever, the humor that they're using.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my 2 cents.
I would say the first 3 seasons is the least annoying of his voice, because I think watching later on in seasons, it feels almost like Tom Kenny, who's the voice actor, who's great, is almost doing like an impersonation of somebody doing a voice of SpongeBob. Like, it's way more hot. Maybe it's because he's just been doing it for so long that he has to like basically go even higher in order to keep doing it. I don't know. There's like a bunch of stuff where I'm like, this doesn't sound the same. And also the character, of course, with different writers and everything, has changed to be way more like annoying, where Steven Hillenburg had mentioned that he was sort of basing SpongeBob off of like an innocent type, like Jerry Lewis, very much like, carefree, loving, and he doesn't really, as a protagonist, he's not much of a straight, even though he can still be, the straight man, and sometimes compared to like Patrick, which we can talk about if you guys want to talk about like what makes this, like, I guess we're kind of talking about it now, but sort of the style of comedy that is SpongeBob, or why is it funny? I don't know if you guys have any notes on that.
I mean, it's just the times that it catches you off guard, where it like throws kind of a curveball. Like Jonathan saying, like, here's my lab, and then here's my laboratory, or like that kind of taking you in one direction and then pulling you back.
Do that. Even the boulder that they ride.
Yeah, like so, the idea of a boulder,
the engine revving noises.
Yeah, it's out of control. It's so.
And I also think it does a good job of subverting your expectation, because all the previous examples of SpongeBob being like the pioneers, blank, 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 is followed by like him almost getting hit by a truck and looking at algae growing on a rock. And so to suddenly have one of his like crazy pioneer ideas work. What's the other one? He like that used to eat coral.
Oh, right. Yeah, and they eat it. My diet kelp drink. That's what I love that.
My diet Dr. Kelp. How can I enjoy my pizza?
I mean, there's even stuff in like Ripped Pants, which I don't love. I mean, a lot of people think it's one of the best episodes, but the part where the lifeguard thinks he's like died.
Oh, look, a cardboard box washed up on the shore. Oh my God, it's a person.
And then he like sort of quietly like whispers like, I need a tailor. Is so good. Oh my gosh. So I mean, that's the one thing I think a lot of people, if you meet like people our age, like we had mentioned before that Jared and I used to have like SpongeBob viewings, and there are a lot of people who just consider SpongeBob to be just stupid. Like, oh, this isn't funny because it's stupid. And that's a lot of the biggest arguments against it, is that people just rub it off as being dumb, which I would debate that in a way, in sort of a way.
Do you want to expand on that?
I guess so. I feel like there's different types of stupid comedy in a way. I'm a huge comedy nerd. I love, kind of analyzing what makes us laugh type thing. And of course, yes, it is stupid. But I feel like SpongeBob is almost, especially in the early days, is very much a smart type of stupid, if that makes sense. Like we were just talking about, like the Ripped Pants episode is dumb and it's stupid humor, but it makes us laugh because it works so hard on making the dumbest joke, but it goes like all in. That's I think what makes us laugh. And I think a lot of the other reason that people think it's stupid is because of the character of Patrick, who is obviously just the lovable idiot character. But I would argue that that's the same as something like...
giraffe.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say.
But I would say the same about other shows that people like. I mean, like, he's basically like the Kramer or like the Andy Dwyer of Parks and Rec, where it's like he's there to make the joke to be silly and stupid. But yeah, I think you get a different view of SpongeBob once you get older, because there's a theory that basically when you watch SpongeBob as a kid, the protagonist to you is SpongeBob, but when you watch as an adult, the protagonist is Squidward. Yeah, because Squidward is the straight, like, boring type, and they kind of both have the sides of being like each other. So like adult has to grow up and has to have a job and nothing is fun anymore, where the kid, everything is innocent and exciting. And in a way that's sort of Hillenburg, like combating both of those things. Not saying that he didn't love like marine biology, but like SpongeBob sort of is supposed to be like his love for arts and cartoons that he grew up with. Like he mentions Looney Tunes as a huge example.
It's the marriage of the two, like Futurama. It's like all the writers of that are like Harvard physics grads. So it's just like, we're just going to make a cartoon. It's like all kinds of physics in there.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also a cartoon that's silly.
Didn't one guy write his like astrophysics PhD dissertation as an episode, and it won an
There was an episode that they had to create a mathematical proof to write it, to like the idea they had. Yeah, definitely.
We're all Futurama fans, right?
Yeah.
We could do that. That falls under the category.
I'm just going to give this one quote because I know Jared knows it, and I think, Jonathan, you might know it, and then we can keep talking about SpongeBob. But it's incredible to see what a man with a cannon in his chest can truly accomplish.
It's so good.
Anyway...
Oh my!
Okay, so as an example of something that's like a dumb joke, that's done so well to me is in the episode Argh, which Jonathan you'll get to. Okay. It's about they don't have many customers in the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs is kind of like, oh, we don't have anything, but he sees Patrick and SpongeBob playing a board game about the Dutchman's treasure. And essentially, it's basically like a Chutes and Ladders of Candyland. With the end, you get a golden treasure. And so Mr. Krabs joins them thinking the game is stupid, and then after a while, he eventually gets more into it than anyone else. And so they keep playing over and over and over again, and then a customer who's the design of the character is not normally known as Fred the Fish, just walks into the restaurant and goes, rev up those fryers because I sure am hungry for it. And then Mr. Krabs just throws him out of the restaurant, which is the beginning of the my leg running. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's dumb, but it's so funny.
Well, help me wade through this here, Brad. I'm just spitballing. Like the difference between there's like trying to be just random and chaotic. And then there's the humor that's just like creative, like you wouldn't think about going in that direction, which is the difference between like aimless oddity versus just something off the wall.
Sure.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Right. And I would agree with that. I mean, there's an example of, I want to say it was Billy Crystal or somebody was talking about, were you the class clown in high school because you're a comedian? And he's like, no, I was the class comedian. And people say, what's the difference? And he says basically like the class clown is the person who who streaks during the high school homecoming game. The class comedian is the one who told him to do it. And I think that sort of the difference is that I think with stupid humor, you have people who are just there to get the cheapest laugh out of you because they know they can get something out of it. And to be honest, as much as I have such a heart for Nickelodeon, I think Nickelodeon is maybe one of the most influential, I guess you could say franchises or brands of my entire life. A lot of their cartoons and stuff are really just going for the cheapest laugh. Whereas SpongeBob is very much like, if we're going for the cheapest laugh, let's act like we're doing it like it's like the most important joke. And
it's that dedication that sets it apart.
Right, and effort, which I think is important. For example, like some people who are listening will probably know what I'm about to talk about. I worked at a summer camp, and we had a mascot during the summer camp that was just inflatable, like blow up pool swan that we bought at Target. And we took it so seriously. Like it had its own like room and everything, that its name was Ron the Swan.
Was it spelled R-A-W-N?
I don't remember if we ever had a R-O-N. Anyway, we took it so seriously that we made a movie trailer about a rom-com between the inflatable swan and another inflatable swan that we bought at Target. And then we spent maybe like 3 days, like hardcore filming like this huge like rom-com trailer for a movie that doesn't exist. And we took it so seriously. And I think just halfway through filming it, we were all just stopped in the middle, like, what are we doing? Are we seriously making a rom-com out of 2 inflatable, like, floaty devices? Anyway.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying earlier about just the earnestness of it.
Sure, yeah.
Now that was just a really appealing quality to it.
I also like how like the logic of the world of Bikini Bottom makes no sense, because it's like they have cars and restaurants, and it's like they don't, and SpongeBob just doesn't care that none of it makes any sense. It's just like, they don't have cars, they don't have any of that stuff.
Or the fact that they acknowledge that like Sandy has to have air and they have to have water, but then at the same time, when he delivers the pizza and gets yelled at by that guy, SpongeBob falls on the ground underwater and cries.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, just in terms of what I think makes SpongeBob more clever than people give it credit for, is SpongeBob is a huge, great example of there's the rules of 3 in comedy, where it's like you do punchline, 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 and SpongeBob does that almost every time. The only other time I can think where it doesn't do like 3 jokes in a row of like the same thing is, which we'll get into, I guess, in season 2 is, and talking about like the logic makes no sense, is when it snows in Bikini Bottom, and there's a joke where they keep throwing snowballs, and Squidward's door is open or isn't open, and it keeps landing inside the fire in his house and taking out the fire. I think they do that maybe 5 or 6 times, just because how funny it is. For the entire episode, they're just throwing a snowball, and it will always land in his fire and take it out. But even in season 3, like in Argh, the same episode I was just talking about, like there's a good 3 punchline joke where the Dutchman's treasure joke where they have like a choir singing. So like they'll show them a treasure and it'll be like the Dutchman's treasure, and then the next joke will be like 2 global wounds, and then like the last treasure being super lame and it's just like plastic. But SpongeBob does that consistently throughout, what I love. So yeah, if that's it,
Leave it in.
leave in the awkward pauses.
Leave it in.
In addition to the amount of memes that I have recognized from the very few episodes that I've watched, I just, in like the very first episode, I have found maybe my favorite frame that I've seen from SpongeBob, like ever. And I'm going to text it to you guys.
And then I'm going to describe it for the audience.
Basically, it is a picture of Squidward standing at the glass doors to the Krusty Krab, looking very dejected while attempting to use a Windex to remove a marker drawing of his face with the word loser above it.
I'm holding on to that.
I love SpongeBob. Why is that not a meme? That looks like something that would be written.
That is literally one of the first times we see Squidward. This is what we're shown. It's right when SpongeBob is running up to apply for the job at the Krusty Krab. Literally, in the first 5 minutes.
That's hilarious.
It's such gold.
I love Squidward. Even we can talk about this coming up, but I was gonna say just how, like, in Infinity War, I think Tony Stark calls somebody Squidward. That got the biggest laugh out of my audience when I saw that for the first time than any joke in the movie.
I remember that.
Everyone was like, it's people standing up, cheering, throwing things.
Yeah, if your show or whatever is referenced in like a movie, you've made it. Like, you're outside of you are a real show in every universe. You're a real show in the Marvel universe where he can reference Squidward. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
What's the Gordon Ramsay one? Oh, this squid is so raw, I can still hear it telling SpongeBob to F off.
Oh, man. Even we'll talk about it a little bit, but in the 2005, it's the Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds movie. Like, the kids are watching SpongeBob before the attack happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that clip where they're blowing bubbles, and SpongeBob blows an elephant-shaped bubble, and Patrick's like, "Oh, it's a giraffe." I remember that so vividly because it was shown in Zathura, which is like a sci-fi. It's basically sci-fi space Jumanji, by the same author as Jumanji.
Directed by Jon Favreau.
Was it really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
It's directed by Jon Favreau, and he did that movie after he did Elf.
Wow. But that was before he got involved with Marvel.
Oh, way before.
Before.
We could totally talk about Zathura. I'd be down. I love that movie.
That movie it's really good. I remember it being really good. I haven't seen it in a long time.
I remember the trailer freaking me out.
Jared, have you seen Zathura?
Zathura.
So it's like Jumanji, where it's a board game that causes things to happen, except it's in space. And so basically, like on the first like roll of the die, their house is now like floating in outer space.
Yeah.
And then, they'll get attacked by like space pirates and like robots and stuff.
I remember the game for the original Xbox being fun. Do yourself a favor, and after this, I will send you the trailer, because the trailer is rad.
Didn't know Kristen Stewart did anything before.
The trailer to Zathura?
Yeah, the first trailer for Zathura is basically just the setup for the movie, and it's part of the film, but it was such a good job of kind of building the world for Zathura and making go like, this is what's going to happen next. And I remember seeing it all the time and being like, holy crap, that looks awesome. Also stars a very young Josh Hutcherson, who has been in like we should get him on the show.
Yeah, come on, dude.
Hey, if we can, right now, let's say right now in our third episode, what, okay, name a celebrity guest who it's like, this is the one we should get.
I know that Jerry Seinfeld might be busy, but I feel like we could get him.
Jerry Seinfeld for the
Bionicle.
Oh, I was gonna say for B movie. I think his daughter goes to school around here. Actually,
was B movie? Is
that how we're gonna get him to be on the podcast?
Be like, hey,
2007. I didn't realize it was that old. Yeah, Jerry, come on, talk about B movie.
Okay, Jonathan, do you have a guest?
I'm not sure he wants to. A guest that I would bring on to talk about.
Yeah, name it right now. Who's your celebrity guest to talk with, to chat with?
Gosh, Brett, what are the lead actors from Spy Kids up to these days?
One of them is married to Meghan Trainor. I know that.
Yeah, all I know is the paparazzi photo of them walking out of like a Adam and Eve. And they're both just wearing like sweatpants.
That's right. Yeah, Daryl Sabara, who plays Junie, is married to Meghan Trainor.
That somehow that doesn't make sense to me.
I know, right? It's one of those weird things where like, wait, what? But, I'll say, I'm trying to think of celebrities that I'll be like, that was the most interesting conversation. To me, it's a tie between Oprah Winfrey or Jennifer Lopez. Because I think legit, I could have a conversation and be like, that was very interesting. And they had a lot of influence on the 2000s.
What is your icebreaker question for Oprah?
Good question. I mean, I just want to know what she's up to these days, to be honest, because I think she's so busy, and then get into that from there. Geez, that's good. I would want to first talk about Drake and Josh, but
what was it like having a fake Nickelodeon character obsessed with you?
So, but that might just be like, I want to go out to lunch with Oprah and just chat. But, after she listens to this episode, she's obviously going to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, don't call her. She'll call you.
Exactly. Have my people call your people. Should we talk about sort of like why parents hated SpongeBob? Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you have more insight on that?
A little bit. I mean, your parents weren't alone, Jonathan, in sort of kind of saying SpongeBob was bad for children. I mean, a lot of parents, I think, definitely found SpongeBob's voice to be annoying as sort of the first thing. I think a lot of people also found it to be really fast. in terms of how it was moved.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a study done from some pediatrics. I think it was like 2011. And so, after the golden age of SpongeBob, so keep that in mind. So the study was done with 64-year-olds. So 60, not 64-year-olds, 60 kids, and they were all 4 years old. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were tasked to either draw pictures or watch SpongeBob or watch interactive learning program Caillou. And the kids' mental abilities were tested immediately after the activity, and unsurprisingly, apparently, the study showed that the students who watched SpongeBob had lower test scores, mental ways. Which I'm gonna make a counter argument real quick.
Go ahead, and then I've got something to add.
Yeah. So the other show that they made kids watch was Caillou. Caillou is maybe the worst show I've ever seen. If you've ever seen Caillou,
I only remember one episode, and it's the one where Caillou finds a dead bird, and his father has to explain to him what death is.
Whoa!
That's the only one I remember seeing, and it's so heavy.
Oh my god!
I have never seen it. Is this the Caillou? Is that what you?
Caillou.
Yes,
it's
Caillou.
the bald
I've
kid
never
that looks
seen
like
this ever.
So I'm going to counter argument because I will say that Caillou is even more destructive to kids than SpongeBob, because Caillou, if you've ever seen it, is essentially about a kid who's extremely bratty and gets whatever he wants, no matter the consequences, because his parents never tell him no. They just give him what he wants, and if he doesn't get what he wants, he whines and whines and whines until he gets what he wants. That's the show. The parents just listen to their toddler the whole show. So I went and did some research about Caillou and seeing what other parents thought of it as an educational program, and I found an entire forum of parents complaining about how it was turning their kids into brats and teaching them inappropriate behaviors. There was Twitter pages on toddler education forums with articles saying how to block Caillou from your Netflix account. Parents hate the show. I read
boycott Caillou.
Hashtag boycott Caillou. If you watch Caillou, you'll go, this is terrible for children. I read a 400 word, or I don't remember if it was page or whatever. It was so long. I read an essay about how Caillou is bad for kids. I have a quote, which is, "We follow this pseudo Charlie Brown as he whines, knees, barks, and orders, shouts at people, hurts himself, throws tantrums, causes trouble, and generally shares his self-centered, pathetic, purposeless outlook onto thousands of kids all over the world."
Holy cow.
Yes.
That is scathing.
Yes. And I will say, as somebody who watched Caillou like here and there as a kid, I will say, yeah, no, Caillou sucks. That is not, if you're literally putting SpongeBob up against maybe one of the most uneducational PBS programs, then obviously, these pediatrics don't know anything.
Wow. I also feel like it's maybe not specific to SpongeBob, this response.
Right. I think
because there's tons of research about like if you're driving a car on the interstate, which is like super monotonous and boring, things like that are repetitive in a sense, that you're shown basically to have like worse test scores after doing something like that. And I would imagine if you're watching any television, which is a very inactive, passive, you're just kind of watching it, right? You're not having to necessarily process a whole bunch of things the same way you do when you're, for example, reading, and you're having to make a mental picture. I would bet that any TV that you watch is going to have that kind of an effect. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's just kind of, what happens when you do things that are either passive or repetitive. I don't think that's indicative to just SpongeBob.
That's a good point. Because I did some other research in trying to, I found some studies that showed the positive effects of SpongeBob on children. A lot of it being parents talking about that it was teaching kids optimism and positivity through the character of SpongeBob. That, one parent said in a forum I read, it was saying that watching SpongeBob gives parents a great opportunity to teach children about what they will face when they get older. Things like name calling, disappointment, annoying friends, pesky neighbors, losing jobs, getting crushes, etc. are all part of reality that they will all face one day. And I totally agree. I think that SpongeBob does have a lot of positive effects. I mean, as a kid who watched SpongeBob growing up, I would say that I feel like I have a little bit more of a maybe more positive outlook on I'm not saying I got that strictly from SpongeBob, but I'm saying, it showed more of a brighter perspective.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Jerry, you got anything that?
I think you just prescribed SpongeBob for, SpongeBob will make you happier.
So what I'm hearing...
That's what you just said.
I diagnose you with Brad, and I'm prescribing SpongeBob.
I mean, to give an example again of my dad, anytime he had a terrible day at work, would go to watch SpongeBob to make himself feel better. And it worked.
And I think I understand that. Because, if I were to get on Netflix or Amazon Prime or any streaming service and watch some serious drama after a hard day at work and putting up with, whatever coworkers or customers or bosses or whoever, that would suck. I'm I just dealt with serious drama all day. I want something, silly, lighthearted that I can just sort of watch and not have to worry about the serious drama. And I think that's where SpongeBob kind of fits that style of comedy almost perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, this feels like a good place to stop at least for this season, unless, Jared, do you have any other notes you want to share, or Jonathan?
I don't. No,
I'm good.
We hit everything.
Okay. Well, at some point, we will be talking about season 2. I mean, I'd like to go... We'll continue some of this conversation that we've had already with SpongeBob, but I guess we'll definitely get more into sort of the impact it's had on popular culture at some point, and then we can, even if we want to, we can maybe, after we do all 3 seasons, we can maybe give a ranking of our favorites.
Like a highlights,
favorite episodes.
Yeah, maybe top 5.
Yeah. Oh man,
that would be fun.
We would have to top 5, but without Band Geeks, or maybe we could do a snake draft of episodes or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And maybe we can post on our social media of some type of polls and stuff. It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, well, that's all I have, and I'm excited to talk about this more. But yeah, thanks so much for listening to Most Extreme Pod. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter with the usernames Most Extreme Pod. And if you have any questions, email us at mostextremepodcast@gmail.com. I'm just looking. Anything else, guys?
No. See y'all next week.
Yeah, I guess next week. I guess a hint for next week. Y'all have one, or do you want me to?
Is this the one that comes in a squeezable tube-shaped packet?
Wow, there's a hint.
If that's not a hint enough.
One in the world.
Well, that's your hint for this week. Again, we never mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but yeah, we did this one on Zoom. Hopefully coming up, we'll have ones with better audio for y'all. Yeah, other than that, thanks so much for listening, and hope to see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.